You are on this 31st day of January there, 2018. If you've been wishing that the month of January comes to an end, it is the last day. So don't you worry. Your prayers have been officially answered, and at least by midnight, you'll never see January 2018 until next year, 2019. Welcome back to the program. Good morning, Kenya. We want to talk about issues to do with land, and we are talking about the land question. And studio with us, land remains, of course, an emotive issue in this country, and we know what has been happening every time we talk about land issues. And what are we doing as a country to solve some of the problems that face the land question in this country as we talk about them, especially during the electioneering period. In studio with me is a two-member panel, Dr. Hussein Wario, and is the officer in charge of National Natural Resource Management. Karibu sana daktari to the program.
Thank you very much, Martin.
And happy to have you. Husna Mbarak, I'm very keen on how I do pronunciation of that name, is in charge of the land program that was launched by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in the year 2016. Husna, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. And
happy to have you to the program. Do you have any questions regarding land issues and the program that this particular organization is implementing in the country? 22160 is our SMS line. At KBC Channel 1 is our Twitter handle. At Mato Bahati is my Twitter handle. Remember, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. And my name is Martin Mwanje. I'll be the pilot of the program all the way to 8, hopefully, as we talk about this. Let's begin straight away. There's normally a saying, what men can do, women can do better. So let me begin by Husna. Why this program, Husna?
I think for quite a long time, Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, has been dealing on production, especially in terms of crops and, food production. But one of the major questions which always crops up, do we have the space? Do we have the land? Is there enough land available? Mm-hmm. And I think that's why the focus on land, especially in Kenya, mm-hmm. as for FAO. And we are glad that we went into partnership with the European Union and the Ministry of Lands and the National Land Commission to be able to look at this question on a bigger platform. Mm-hmm. Yes. And
so as we talk about this particular program, just by way of introduction, Dr. Wario, which parts of the country are you implementing the program? Because we are talking about 47 counties in this country. So are you implementing the program across the 47 counties?
Well, this program is being implemented in 8 counties as we speak. These 8 counties are mainly the ones that we call ASAL, the ones that are in arid and semi-arid lands of Kenya, with the exception of one that is Nandi, which we use it as also a pilot for high potential land issues and high potential areas. In the ASAL areas, we are in Marsabit County, we're in Samburu County, we're in Turkana, Baringo, West Pokot, Laikipia, and Tana River. Mm-hmm. So those are the 8 counties that we focus on for now.
So why the ASAL areas?
Just like the question that you've started with, why this program and why land? As you know, majority of Kenyans, almost 80%, depend on food that is directly produced on land. And talking about land and food security, ASAL comes into focus because always when you hear drought striking, people are food insecure, these are the areas that are fragile, these are the areas that are always in focus. So land now, being the main factor of production, is the element now that we need to focus on and see how can people make sustainable use of the land to be able to be food secure. So that is why ASAL has gotten the much focus of this program. And also to add, looking at general aspect of land reforms and land administration in Kenya, the arid and semi-arid areas have not benefited from legal and policy frameworks that have been there before. And as Kenya has now moved into coming up with a raft of reforms, that has also have key focus on ASAL areas. So this is an opportunity for us to engage with the community, with the government, and see that the communities benefit also from these reforms as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I realized when Husna was talking about the partners, she talked about the Ministry of Lands, she talked about the National Land Commission, but we have a new dispensation in some way, 2 levels of government.
Yes.
Where is the place of county governments in this?
Actually, that's part of the partner. Pardon me for not mentioning it. The Council of Governance, and we're working very, very closely because the whole program is about devolution. And this is in the spirit of the Vision 2030 for Kenya. Actually, the blueprint for Kenya, which is guiding development, economic development for Kenya. So that is, those are the main paid partners. But not only those ones, not forgetting the civil society organization who are strongly lobbying and advocating for both legal and, land in broader aspects, reforms in this country. And then we've been working so closely with them. Just to add up to what, why the focus on those 8 counties, or why the focus now for those counties. We are also, in this, actually in terms of agricultural production and livestock management, we really need to kind of get into, find out what are the potential of these other counties. And I think that is why even FAO, on a broader aspects of the work they're doing in Kenya, focuses on ASAL areas. So we are really trying to not only showcasing, but give out the experience we've had globally to Kenya that the ASAL areas can really produce and they can make this country food secure.
And so, as we talk about 8 counties, quick mathematics tell you we are remaining with 39 counties, or something like that, 39 counties thereabout. Do we expect that by the year 2022, for example, after 2021, you're going to spread the program in other counties? Okay,
let me give you a little bit history of the program itself. We started for 2.5 years, again, through the beautiful and generous partnership with the European Union. We had a pilot within Tana River and Turkana counties to look at the potential of sorting out the aspects of land, especially communal lands, because statistics states that Tana River and Turkana has the vast communal lands, and even the way of living and the way they're doing their stuff is more communal. So we did a pilot there, which now informed the first phase of the program, which now we are currently running from 2016 to 2021. We are hoping, and through various partners, going to implement the second phase. That's why we also have a focus on high potential area, Nandi County, to look at the possibility of expanding our work. But don't forget that this is only one of the programs within FAO Kenya, and even global, working on aspects. We have other areas, in the country, we have other counties we are working in, especially in terms looking at conservation, agriculture, looking at rangeland management. We have focus on also other counties, Makueni, Kitui, Kakamega, it's especially on fisheries, and some other areas at the coast region like Kwale, Kilifi, where we are also not only piloting, but working on other aspects of agriculture production.
I'm just trying to imagine, assuming, because this program is European Union funded, I'll be getting into the nitty-gritties. I'm just trying to understand it broadly, or for the sake of Kenyans. If the European Union woke up today morning and said, from today we are stopping funding to this particular program, Dr. Wario, can you first, residents of the 8 counties where you have implemented this program since 2016, and say, listen, these are the indicators that we did this, we achieved this, these are our achievements. Do you have any so far?
Foremost, I will say that one of the achievements that we have in place is a good working relationship with the various levels of government in this country, right from the national to the county level. In my earlier statement, I said there has been reforms that now has a lot of focus on the communal lands of Kenya. This is one commitment that the government has taken, and this goes down to even the planning aspect that has been going on. The counties are committed in terms of putting land aspect and especially sustainable management of land in its programming. So even what we're doing is support. We cannot go all the way to the end. With even the funding of the European Union, it mainly acts as it gives us a catalytic effect, to spur change, to spur actions at different levels. So this funding gives us this opportunity to ignite the required change. And therefore, a lot of will is there, and this is one achievement that we have had, and a lot of cooperation with the various partners. The buy-in is one important element. And on this, the counties that we are working with have already committed to co-finance the program. And as we talk now, they are revising their integrated development plans, and these elements of land governance is featuring strongly within their plan. So it will be taken up in these levels.
I did ask that question because I remember last year, and if you do watch our news, we did cover expansively the question of food insecurity, drought that was facing parts of counties like Tana River, Garissa, especially the household areas that you're working in. And yet, at the core of this particular program is the question of addressing food insecurity, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Do you think you did enough to try and ensure that the locals there are food secure? And if that's the case, then what are the challenges they went through?
One thing we should know is we work with partners, and the government is our main partner, and that is where we are really focusing in. Looking at what already is achieved, in the land program, is that one aspect which we feel that not only we as FAO, but everybody feels, and that the government felt that where we have kind of had challenges and failed a bit is because of planning. And if you can see now, the government has already passed the National Spatial Plan, which is like a mother plan. And I'm proudly to say, congratulating on the government of Kenya. We are also happy to be part of that process. Looking at also putting up monitoring guidelines on the same by the National Land Commission. I'm also, proudly saying Kenya has done that, and we are proudly part of that process. And within that, as Hussein has put it, the county integrated, the revision of the CIDP is taking toll now, and everybody is focusing on it. Looking at even the major issue, a source of conflicts within this country is land and natural resource. And if every other county is ready to tackle it and making sure the governance and the management is done well, and actually is done adhered by the legal reforms we have in this country, yes, that is already applies to the processes. And I'm also proudly to say the Community Land Act is enacted in 2016. The regulation, we are hopeful that they're going to be approved by the Assembly. And they were done quite participatory. And those are some of the methodology we are really advocating for as a partner to the government of Kenya, is that we use the best methodologies and the best practices within this world. And the best ones are when everybody is included in everybody participates in the process.
The question of public participation.
Yes.
But let's go back to the question of food security. If I hear you well, you said that the challenges were there, you attribute them to planning.
Yes.
Which areas do you think there was poor planning, and what have we done, or let me say, what have you done, let me distance myself from this, as FAO to remedy those particular challenges that came with planning? Or poor planning, for that matter.
I think one of the areas is the land use planning, and I think with the National Spatial Planning in place, guided by the Ministry of Lands, and it's going to be devolved down to where do we have land, and what is that land for? And I think that is very, very important. Is it for urban planning? Is it for infrastructure planning? Is it for farming? Is it for livestock? And I think that is where we have quite a number of issues coming out. Even the counties we are working in currently, we are looking at these mega projects and stuff, but we have to really figure out how are we going to plan? How are we including the pastoralist who is down there, who has to make his livestock pass an area, and he has to pave way for the road, he has to pave way for the railway, and and schools and stuff like that. How are they included in the whole aspects? Those are the things which we say we really have to focus on, and for that we'll definitely understand how much land we have to really produce food.
So as things stand, we do not know how much land we have.
I must say yes, we know how much land, but it has to be statistically proven. And I cannot really tell you for a fact that we have this much land available for food, but definitely this has to be put in papers. Yeah.
So, Dr. Wario, then should I, because I'm just trying to imagine, I was, a few days ago, I was in coastal region and was in places like Wundani and such areas, where there's a problem when it comes to the question of land. People do not have that much land. Do you have them in consideration? Are you considering them that with the little land you have, what do you do to produce enough for this country? Are you targeting such people, or it's a question of where is the land, and those are the only areas you're targeting?
Yeah. As you've said, the element of land and its size is a big question. The land might be available in terms of size, but its productivity is one thing also that limits the amount of food that you can produce on. As you know, Kenya has only 20% what we call the high or medium potential areas. Almost 80% is arid and semi-arid areas. And by this, we do not mean that they are sort of barren and they cannot produce. This land also has its own potential in a way. And when you talk of size, one thing that quickly comes into mind is, of course, our growing population. How do we feed our growing population on land that continues, so to speak, to shrink because we are taking out land for uses like settlements, for instance, for the population, as well as looking at this land in terms of degradation is one thing that occurs to the lands even in the high potential areas that we have. So how do we keep on producing on this land to sustain our population? For Food and Agriculture Organization, this is not the only program that it works in. This one addresses aspect of land governance, but we have other programs that also look at aspect of land productivity and how people using innovative approaches can make the best use of the land they have. A good case in pointer is what we call conservation agriculture. Using even minimal investment, minimal tilling, there's a way that FAO is promoting use of conservation agriculture to see that communities can produce food in a sustainable way on even the small pieces of land that they have. So these are some of these approaches that are there.
So which way is FAO using to ensure that those communities, because you say there's a way.
Yes.
So can we state the way now?
Conservation agriculture is the way. And the conservation agriculture is a system of farming where you do minimal tilling and you even use mainly organic manure or organic nutrient to support your farming. It also requires minimal input in terms of tilling, and it has shown that actually it can produce more when you adapt the conservation agriculture approach as opposed to the traditional approaches that we have used. But besides this, besides producing, a lot of times people produce, but again, people produce more than what they consume at times, and marketing aspects comes in. So a lot of marketing linkages are what we use also to see that from the small land, however much is produced, and that is produced also benefits the people through getting good market linkages. But the land program here is focused on how general governance of land can provide or improve equitable access for land for both men and women to be able to produce food.
Let's stay on conservation farming, because that's critical when we talk about food security in this country. And I want to speak and cite an example of an area like Madogo in Tana River County. And I'm just trying to imagine this resident staying somewhere in Madogo in Tana River, and he has a piece of land, a small piece of land, and he does not have the inputs, for example. You talk about manure, you talk about some of this equipment. Under this program, are you facilitating those kind of people, farmers, who are interested in tilling, but perhaps they do not have resources?
As we say, they are all programs for sure, and they have to, and most of us, maybe most of the work we're doing is more piloting, so as they can be picked up and, done by any other person who is interested in, is to showcase the best examples out there. So for an area like Madogo, why not? We've done a lot of work in conservation agriculture in Kilifi, for example. And women, for example, are producing. And actually, we have even testimonies in that regard. Then if we need to make it work in Madogo, why not? Because even the area is kind of, but I'm sure with the support of the government and with the 4 agendas, the presidential agenda, one of them is food security. Probably the focus will to provide resources and inputs to such areas to really work in. But the pilot is there. You could really see it, and people could produce it. And again, I think this is where we say we kind of brag around and say FAO is more of a knowledge management organization where we can give records of things done, we can give studies and research done for people to learn how things are done in best way. Of course, we cannot cover. Of course, if we get EU to facilitate the financial resources for us to be able to cover the whole country, why not? But we can always give the best statistics. We can always give the best research and say these are the best ways you can do it, and this has worked in this area, and these areas. And that's why if you look at the way we work, we sample out areas which probably the government has not had a big reach in there, but we work together so as we are able to kind of complement the government of Kenya to showcase that this is how it works. Yeah.
If you allow me to interject. You gave an example of Madogo, for instance, and we have talked about our focus being mainly on ASAL. And in ASAL areas, it has very minimal potential for farming, for crop production, to say. Yes.
Is it because that also, every time that kind of statement has been made, Israel has been cited as a very good example, that look at it, more of an arid country, but irrigation has just done marvelous.
Exactly.
So I don't know whether that statement is factually correct.
It's factually correct to say it has low potential in terms of crop production. And this basically depends on, look at the rainfall that it receives, look at the soil that it has. If you cite the example of Israel, it's one of the good practices and good way of using innovative approaches in farming. Potential is there. In a way, it can still be, productivity can still be improved. But if you look at it in the larger context, this land mainly support production of livestock. And that is, it has been scientifically also shown, that is what it's the best potential lies in production of livestock, and especially on the naturally grown fodder. So when we talk about farming also, in terms of crop farming in these areas, there's always limit that we can go to. We cannot always push the farming or crop production aspect while ignoring the livestock production aspect that this land mainly support. But I agree, the potential is low, but it still has a room for improvement using innovative approaches and technologies that are out there, like what is used by Israel, for instance.
And then you did talk about the question of marketing, because I'm just going to assume here you have empowered this particular farmer, you have told her or given her some of the inputs and all that, and there you have your bumper harvest. Where do you step in terms of marketing? Because it's one thing having all that produce, then there's nothing you can do.
Exactly.
Yes. One of the things that I'd like to mention is linking these farmers to the existing market. Have farmers knowing or having the information where these markets for their produce are. And this is not just about crops, but also the livestock produce. Where do you market? And the other aspect that we focus on, how can we add value? Most of the times our farmers market raw. They have to take their cattle or their goats as is to the market. How can they, or even the milk, they have just to sell it the way it is. How can we add value? This is one element that we focus on. The other aspect is, there's aspect, what is called also contract farming. How can we link farmers to people in these larger markets, for instance, supermarkets, for instance, that accesses food? how can they sign contract with the farmer such that the farmer knows what this market requires and produces that quality in a sustainable manner and be able to get good benefits. And this has shown also to work, especially in areas like Makueni, Tharaka-Nithi, where we have had some very good projects that have shown contract farming is quite beneficial to the farmers, and it's a way that we can have farmers market their produce.
So
this is where,
as you interject, let's answer, because you raise fundamental questions as you speak regarding that. How can they add value? Where are the markets? Can you cite some tangible examples where you have helped farmers add value? And number two, say that, for example, in Kilifi, this farmer did this, and through the help of FAO, for example, we look for this particular market. Do you have those real examples?
Yes, actually, I'll give an example to West Pokot, which everybody assumes is quite a dry area. They produce very beautiful pili-pili, the pepper.
Oh.
Yes,
the
hot one. Yes, the hoho is the hot one, actually. Yes, and we have an Italian farm which is collecting from the farmers. That is a very, very good example we could look at. And I think looking at, to add what Hussein was talking about is the issues of including the private sector, because you talk of supermarkets, you talk of contract farming by individuals and stuff. That is very, very important. That is very, very key. And I think the private sector plays one of the biggest role, especially after production. I mean, most of them, even now, you hear a lot of companies coming up to help even the farmers, putting up greenhouses and stuff. So they play quite a critical role. I mean, looking at also entrepreneurial aspects of the whole farming, sector. Not only because now we are getting out, I can only produce for myself. But if I have surplus, where do I take it to? That is where now we need the private sector to really play a big role. And some of the example which Hussein has cited, especially in conservation agriculture and in contract farming, is where now you really have to bring in the private sector to play a role. I'm looking at the aspects of like Pojo, for example. I'm sure there are quite a number of Indian companies who are willing to buy a lot of Pojos from our small scale farmers, and that is quite good. But the question now remains: how will that farmer down there? How will that woman, Mama Wanjiku, Mama Kahindi, Mama Mary, will be able, or Baba Mary, will be able to know there is a farmer who can get into that. Looking at irrigation. I'm citing an example, for example, in Hola irrigation scheme, where East African Breweries is doing contract farming with the farmers there, producing sorghum for. So some of these things, as much as the farmers will want to, and it's quite a challenge, but how do you form those linkages is very, very important. And I'm sure FAO cannot only do it for the whole country, but we need those type of, the private sector to come out strongly, and also the government to put up policies, which most of them are in place, to be able to curb the so-called agencies, where we have, I produce, but the benefits I get are less because there's an agent between me and the person buying and stuff like that. And also the controlling of prices, not only controlling of prices and the controlling or security of agents, but also in terms of infrastructure and road networks also. I was in a place called Wenje in Tana River. They produce good melons, very beautiful and very mouth-watering melons. But they can only produce it, and the next level is they cannot take them to even a near place like Hola sometimes, or even take them to Nairobi. Why? Because they don't have the means, they don't have. So those are things which are, challenges which are really facing these small farmers. And I think One of the areas we are really trying to advocate for is the cooperative issues, where the farmers come in together and they are able to coordinate themselves, put up plans for themselves, and they are able to tackle some of these issues. One other aspect I think is, which is very key, even in our own way of life, is that we should not only wait for the state. State can control, can put up policies to secure our markets and our prices and but some of this we have to like take a step forward and this is where we say capacity development, creating awareness. So what is there? How can you go about it? A lot of trainings to the farmers and a lot of empowerment processes or projects to the farmer can really enlighten them. A small training on how you can do conservation agriculture to a woman or a man down in Kilifi can really make that difference. And that is where we say, whenever there is a right, there is a responsibility.
There's a responsibility,
yes.
and well said. Perhaps I just wanted to know whether you came with some water. You did talk about watermelons.
Yes.
In Wenje.
Yes.
You came with some of them.
I need to make a trip there.
You need to make another trip
yes.
there. But she talks about a very key thing, the question of training, because I was coming to the question of outreach programs. It's one thing having the land program. It's one thing wanting to talk about conservation farming, for example. But then how do you reach out to the populace? Because the kind of management and outreach programs today we are talking about is not about top-bottom. It's about a bottom-up approach, kind of doing things. The question of public participation, that even our own constitution envisages. How are you engaging the public? Is it through radio? Is it through such programs? I know you're going to cite through programs like Good Morning.
Yeah.
Apart from this particular program, how have you been reaching out to farmers?
Good.
In those counties?
Yeah, Martin, I think to reiterate the point, FAO is a technical agency. It deals mainly with empowering people in terms of having the capacity to be able to be doing things for themselves. As you've also said in this program, fundings and organization work have time limits. We always focus on how do communities be able to work on their own and be able to be food secure. When it comes to engaging the community, particularly in the land sector, a good starting point is in managing land now in the arid and semi-arid areas. We have legal and policy frameworks that we really want to work within, and they're very enhancing. A good starting point is the Community Land Act for us. And the Community Land Act proposes a structure, a management structure. First, it vests the land to be held and owned by the community, and it also envisages that communities have management structures in place to be able to sustainably manage this land. And this is where the land program comes in. We have presence in all these counties that we're talking about. We have officers on the ground, and we directly engage with these communities to move towards now communities identifying themselves, identifying, also claiming their land, and being able to form these management structures that can have plans and also govern the land in a sustainable way. Hosna mentioned also, while starting the program, aspects of conflict is one thing that occurs on community lands, and specifically in the ASAL. Then these are some of the structures now that will come into play, that will have to negotiate, with their neighbors. And something that I want to put here is pastoral production is unique in terms of land use. You do not have a box that you stay in. You have to be mobile. You have to move even outside an area that you call your own. So these are some of the structures that needs to be enhanced. So this is where FAO comes in. The aspect of capacity for these community members to first of all understand how do we manage our land in the current legal dispensation, and how do we manage our land based on the contemporary issues that are happening around us. A lot of focus is in ASAL areas now. A lot of investment is being done. Talk of the LAPSET, talk of the wind power, talk of oil exploration. Communities have to engage with all this and be able to benefit and be able also to manage their land. So we engage directly with these communities by having our officers there, keeping touch with them, but of course also working with the county governments very closely, because the mandate of working at that level mainly lies with the county. And since our programs has not have the capacity to reach every end of even the counties that we speak about, then partnership is one important element that we promote while working with the communities at that particular level. Yeah.
Husra, you wanted to say something?
Yes, actually the focus of the program, if you look at it, it has quite 4 different components, which tackles the land administration component and the tenure rights. And I think when you look at it, it doesn't only look at that community which has the rights, but also look at how are these rights being documented, how are these rights being understood by everybody, and that is where the component of creating of awareness, but also working with the government to make sure we have the registry and the documentation processes done well. And the government has started the process of even digitizing records. That is where also conflicts comes in. When something, when a land is not doesn't have any records of ownership, meaning is unoccupied. But for a fact that the law now, the Community Land Act, brings in the other aspects of recognition and protection and registration of communal land, that is where now Hussein has said it clearly that the community can put a claim, meaning that already we started documenting those rights. But also looking at the other focus, which we need to bring in the program, is the land use planning aspects of every other detail. As much as the community will take lead in managing their land, but they have to manage them in a way that is well planned, and every other stakeholder is included in it. And looking back at what the Constitution has stated in terms of categories of land, looking at all those aspects in terms of when land is public, when land is community, and when land is private, but also looking at the management point of it. If I need to have, a community, for example, in Marsabit, in Mount Kulal area, requires the other mandated agencies of the government to work in terms of conservation and management for sustainable use, why not bring them on board? And actually the law is very clear. The other aspect which the program will focus on is now the legal and the policy reforms.
The legal?
Yes.
I'll talk about the legal because I'll be looking at the expected outputs, and I can see at output number 3,
yes.
you talk about legal issues here.
Yes.
Hopefully we look about it. Emmanuel Oriedo, at Oriedo, tweeting 4 minutes ago, you say, great discussion at KBC television. I'm kind of sure at KBC channel 1, that's our Twitter handle, yes. I can attest that farmer linkages are very key in enhancing market access. That's what Emmanuel Oriedo says on Twitter. And he says, let's also move towards open data so that we know how much we produce, where is it needed. Let us use the food we produce to meet our needs first. So Emmanuel talks about the question of open data. If you can just say something about it, and how we can know how much you produce, and then what is needed. I think it raises fundamental issues here.
Yeah, I think that is a great question and a great idea, and it's one of the elements that FAO also focuses on. Data, availability, and how do we have information being collected, being processed, and to be available in an easy way and accessible to everyone, who needs it. So within our programs, not only in this land governance program, but even in our other programs, we do promote the use of open data. And one element that we look at is given the technology that we have now. For instance, in Kenya, mobile phone coverage is quite impressive, and people can access internet at ease. How do we have data being made available in a given platform for people to access? And this can be about the productivity that it talks about the amount of food that we produce, amount of land that we have in this country, for instance, amount of milk and meat that is produced by communities out there. These are some of the elements. And talking about land, and particularly this program, we are working in partnership to see that a platform is established whereby interested individuals can access information on land governance and especially on community land aspect. I'm sure Husna would like to add one or two
and
of the things I would like to do.
And as she adds, she needs to talk about the National Spatial Plan,
Sure.
because she did say something about it. Because I'm just wondering, because Emmanuel already talked about data and open data. What do we need, what don't we need, and all those kind of things.
About the links.
And you say the Ministry of Lands has come up with the National Spatial Plan. So when you are launching this particular program, on which data did you rely on to try and say this is what is needed and perhaps this is what you should do?
One thing is about the National Spatial Plan. It was done quite participatory way, because all sectors in this country was done, and it was, as again, it was being led by the Ministry of Lands and Fiscal Planning, and they made sure they had all the data involved. We tried to put in our technical inputs one way or the other, but I must confess that was done in a way that all data was involved. What is there in this country, what should be planned for in a broader aspect of it. But don't forget there is a mandated clause within the country, the County Government Act, in terms of that is a requirement of each county to come up with a spatial plan for each of the county. Now that will, what we are seeing already, because within the program we've started discussions with the counties we are working in on the process of putting up a county spatial plan together with our partners, and this is where now we get the nitty-gritties of stuff on what is where, what should be done where, and what land is potential for what, if or not already. But I think in most from where we are and the experience we've had, it's not that this government doesn't really have plans. It does. The only thing is to amalgamate them and put them as one. So as we say that information can be accessed as one. Because for now, I think if you need something to do with forest, you'll have to look for KFS, Kenya Forest. If you want to do with agriculture, you have to look for the Ministry of Agriculture. And some of this, as we say, as much as there are some of this, the planning is being devolved, but definitely the two levels of government have to work very closely to make sure this is done well. Just to add up to what Hussein, I would like, that is the niche now. Issues of open data. What is where, who is where, what market is where, I think that is very important. But the most interesting part, which I'm really looking forward to see working, is that the youth have access to all mobile devices you can get in your smartphone. You can know who is, you can Google and say who is, what market is there, for example, in Nairobi. But also, you can also go ahead and use some technology to even map up your land. Those are things we really need, everybody to understand. On top of that, I would really look forward to see that platform, either an SMS platform, which we'll see what can be done, but also I'm sure some other partners and other organizations have worked on, is that woman who is down there, who has a simple, we normally call them Molikamwizi phone. How can he get the info? How can he get data? How can she, access? Actually, the key word here is access. Yes, data, especially on markets and stuff. At that level, in either Bofa in Kilifi or in Madogo in Tana River, or you go down to Lodwa, even to areas of Lokicha, how can they get into their normal Mulikamwizi phones and they can get access? I think that's the key word. As much as other work we are working on in terms of sharing reports via emails or such platforms. But open data is the way to go now. So everything is just too open for everybody to be able to learn and access.
I think one element that the country has been working on, and we also contribute to with this program, is setting up a land information management system at the national level, such that information about land is readily accessible to the stakeholders and the community. We are working with counties right now to see that even at the county level, they have a system in place, a digital system. It will take time, definitely. It will not be something that we can do just once. It's something that we need to build on over time. Land information system is one key element to provide provision of data on land, such that...
Do you have it at national level?
Yes.
We already have it.
I think they have begun establishing it. The National Land Commission has developed guidelines for establishing a national land information management system, and it's one thing that has been in focus for the Ministry of Land for quite some time.
So it's in the process, it's in the pipeline.
It's in the process. And of course, the desire is, how can me and you just sit here and search land and note status at a click of a button? So that is the desired that we want to have in this country.
Actually, one of the area which we are already, which is ongoing, is that aspect of the digitization process of land registry, but also the linkages to other platforms within. And the ministry has gone ahead even linking with the banks at the Nairobi, Nairobi level, they are the house. Linkages with the banks and different other players. But on top of that, they're putting quite a state-of-art platform where you don't have to go long queuing in Ardhi House, for example. If you want information, if you want services, you go into one desk and they'll do it. The likes of, or the format of Huduma Center. And we're really looking forward to that, but also the linkages with the counties to that registry at the national level.
You know, you make it look so rosy at Ardhi House, and I want to assure you that there are people watching us at Ardhi House and they are saying, what is this lady saying? Does she know the pain we are going through? So we just hope that some of those things are real and not just, imaginary. By the way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, as we bring this to an end, I'm told, by the way, our time has just, run so fast. The expected output, if you can just say a word or two regarding it, Dr. Wario, to improve decentralized land governance of community land in ASAL counties of Kenya. How do you do that?
Well, as I've said, the aspect of land governance, especially in the ASAL areas, has lagged behind over the years. But now we have legal and policy dispensation that will help us work. One, the Constitution clearly now identifies community land as one of the land ownership categories. So we draw the powers from there. The second is the Community Land Act, which gives the ownership to the communities themselves. So this in itself already devolves the land management and ownership down to the communities. But as we speak, the Community Land Act is in force, yes, but the regulations are yet to be approved by the Parliament. That means community lands remain unregistered until these regulations are out. The status is, it's held in trust by the county governments. That's a role, a constitutional role that they have been given. Until the land is registered and the communities be able to take charge, the county are the ones who hold in trust for them. With the counties now, of course, they need capacity, they need staff who really understand the legal aspect, they need to understand the technical aspect of handling the different land categories. So we are engaging them at the county level to see that the staff have this focus and move towards ensuring that communities are able to secure their land rights. So that is the element of devolved aspect that we're really focusing on and working on as we speak. Yeah.
Well said, and we need to bring this to an end, but not before I give you the last opportunity to give your closing remarks. Let me begin with Husna. What should we look forward to as we...
I think, as you said, it looks so rosy, but this will be it's a process, and
Yes.
a process will take time. And I must say that we're coming from quite a long while, going through quite some conflicts in this country, and I'm optimistic and really looking forward to beautiful land governance. As I said, it's a process. We'll do as little as we can. The next level, we see what we can, and the rest of the people, and partners will be able to. But I'm sure this is all in the name of food and nutrition security in this country. This is where we want to be, where we are quite food secure. We are able to feed our own and be able to have a little surplus to be able to have the other things we don't have in our houses. Yeah.
Well said. Dr. Ario.
Yes, thank you, Martin. I'd like to say that we see light at the end of the tunnel, so to put it, because of all the commitment that we have seen and the developments that are coming up on land governance. We know that things are not always rosy. Challenges are there, and with the partnership, with the commitment, especially from the government, because the government is the driver of the agenda. Yes. With the commitment of the government, both at the national and the county level, with interest from the community, and with support from good partners like the European Union, we see that a lot can be done. But as Husna said, the road ahead is long, but with this partnership, I'm sure we will achieve quite a lot and ensure that the communities have secure land and be able to produce on that land and improve their food security. Yes.
There you are. The implementation of the land process is a process in itself. In Kiswahili tutasema utekelezaji wa mpango huu ni mchakato, si kitu ambacho unatekeleza vivi hivi tu. Thank you very much, Dr. Hussein Wario, the officer in charge of National Natural Resource Management at FAO, and Husna Mbarak, I want to believe I got the name right, the program manager. Thank you very much for getting time to be with us. We want to wish you well 2021, and we'll be calling you back here so that we do end-term evaluation, if that's the word. In monitoring and evaluation, that's what we say. And we'll be doing that evaluation in 2021. But before that, we'll call them so that we keeping track of the program and how it's being implemented. My name is Martin Mwanjo, on behalf of the entire production and technical crew that has made this a success at this particular point. I want to pave way for Safina Chieng, and she tells me she'll be talking to a number of authors. There's normally a saying that in this country, if you want to hide anything from Kenyans, put it in a book, but it's going to be opening the book. Stay tuned for that particular discussion coming up next.